Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're going somewhere completely different. We are setting aside our usual fields of analysis to dive deep into the literal mechanics of reality itself.
That's right.
We've got a really unique stack of sources that use these incredible analogies from IT and game development. We're talking ZOS, GPUs, future logs, that kind of thing.
Exactly. And our mission today is to really analyze a pivotal process. It's this phase transition that happens when a person or even a system has truly locked in a future state.
So we're decoding what the sources call a phase transition.
We are. It's that moment the whole operating system flips. It goes from running on expectation in history, what we'll call past log rendering, to a totally new system.
One that decodes data directly from the future, a future log.
A future log that has already been actualized. It's already there.
Wow. Okay, so this isn't a philosophical debate about free will anymore. This sounds more like we found an engineering manual for existence.
It really does.
The sources lay out three core components for this. I, which is like consciousness or the designer, then me, the avatar or user interface, and the PRU, the physical rendering engine.
And that's the whole toolkit. The central metaphor we have to track today is this complete reversal of causality.
Yeah.
The old OS is linear, right? Past creates, present creates future.
You work hard, you save, you plan, you build toward a future.
Exactly. But in the new OS, the process is functionally backward. The future log, which is actualized data, gets decoded into the present. And then it generates the necessary past history to justify that present moment.
Wait, it generates the past.
It generates the past. It's an OS rewrite of causality. You stop being a builder of reality and you become a decoder of reality.
Okay, let's unpack this then. I think we have to start with the technical model, with the game engine analogy.
Yeah.
How does the ZOS model actually work? What is the PRU's job?
Right. So the ZOS, or Zero Operating System, is the foundation. And it has 5 layers. At the very top, you've got Z0. Infinite possibility, the ultimate source code.
The raw data stream, maybe? Just pure potential.
Precisely. Then one level down is I, player consciousness, the designer.
Yeah.
This is the choosing force. It's not your personality. It's the point of observation that selects the genre of the game.
So I is the one who says, okay, I'm done playing the survival horror game. Let's switch to a creative sandbox mode.
That is the perfect analogy.
Yeah.
And if I chooses the genre, then the PRU, the physical rendering engine, is the hardware that has to draw that world.
The GPU.
It's the GPU or the game engine itself, like Unreal Engine. Below that, you have me, the playing avatar, the controller. This is the immersion layer, the emotional dashboard.
And what the me sees, the final render, is the last layer, malshit, the screen, the world we touch and feel.
That's the whole stack.
Okay, so if the PRU is the GPU, the computational load must be, absolutely staggering. Sources say it's constantly recalculating everything.
The stability is an illusion. It's maintained by an incredibly high-frequency calculation. Think of the PRU as the world's most advanced physics and socioeconomic engine all rolled into one.
So in a normal video game, the GPU is handling physics, enemy AI, maybe some random item drops frame by frame.
Right. But the PRU is doing that with reality variables. It's rendering the complex dynamics of money flow. Not just your bank balance, but the global velocity of capital required to make your world line work.
Wow.
It's rendering the nuanced emotional reactions of customers. It's calculating the precise timing and synchronicity of events. You know, why you looked at your phone at the exact millisecond a crucial email arrived.
That's a great example. So if I'm trying to close a big deal, the PRU isn't just rendering the final signature on the contract. It's calculating the market mood, the client's emotional state, my own readiness, everything to find the path of least resistance for that event to happen.
It is executing real-time rendering of causality. Every single frame. And that's why when the subject in our sources experiences this massive shift, it's because ITA has initiated a PRU rewrite.
What does that mean in practice, though? It's not just wishing for more money, is it?
No, it's so much deeper.
Yeah.
It's changing the physics engine of the game itself.
Yeah.
The sources are really clear on this. It's a genre change.
Like switching from survival mode, which is all about debt and fear, to a creation game, which is about flow and co-creation.
Or from a game of financial struggle to one of wealth circulation. It's not just changing a number in your stats.
Yes.
It is rewriting the entire level design. And you can't use survival tactics in a creation game. It creates friction. That's why the transition feels so violent sometimes.
That explains the chaos. So let's talk about the character feeling all this, the me. The sources are very specific that me is the UI, not the self.
Right. The me is a high-fidelity user interface. It's designed for one purpose, Maximum immersion, it bundles all your senses, that's the screen.
Yeah.
Your memory, that's the story so far. Your expectations become quests.
And things like anxiety or safety, that's just the HP bar.
That's the HP bar. And emotions are just notifications or loading screens. The me thinks it's the pilot, but it's really just the cockpit dashboard.
Okay, so if our subject is feeling this intense financial stress, the sources are saying that stress isn't really about the number in the bank account.
Exactly. In the bigger picture, that stress is the heat coming off the GPU while it's loading a massive new world. The subject is moving from, say, a single-player RPG to a massive online management game. And the me, whose entire programming is based on trusting what's visible on screen right now, the current HP and gold count, is in total now loading panic.
The fan is whirring, the system is getting hot, and the me is freaking out because the new level hasn't rendered yet.
It's pure now loading panic. The me sees that loading screen, and its old OS equates loading with danger or insufficient resources, so it just defaults to fear.
Because the visual confirmation, the money in the bank, is lagging behind what the PRU is already deploying in the background.
And the deepest fear, the real root of it, isn't even about the money. It's the fear of losing its role. The me was a great survivalist, a great manager. When the future becomes a guaranteed flow, what's its job? That existential question is the source of the panic.
Wow, okay. This is where it gets really fascinating, moving into the mechanics of this new OS. If the future is already a done deal chosen by I, how does that data actually get delivered? And I love this analogy from the sources. The future log as a compressed ZIP file.
It's the perfect metaphor. When I chooses a future, let's call it future 2026q2.zip, it's not a vague wish. It is a complete, compressed, encrypted world data package.
It contains everything.
Everything. The cash flow metrics, the necessary changes in staff behavior, the opportunities that need to arise, the seeds of synchronicity, and crucially, the crisis masks needed to resolve old patterns. It is the entire world just zipped up.
So the PRU's job is simply to unzip and deploy. That's the now loading phase. But this is the key question. If the future is so great, why does that unzipping process feel so awful?
It's about file loading priority. The ZOS, for efficiency, often loads the heaviest, most friction-inducing files first. They're the ones that need the most energy and emotional processing for the me to be resolved.
So while all the good stuff, the cash flow, the miracle solutions, is still being calculated in the background.
Crisis masks, crisismasks.fx, the historical debt logs, olddebt.dll, and the fear sound files, fury.wave, load immediately. They hit the UI first. And this explains that classic alchemical pattern of darkness before the light. Negrito before albedo. You have to load the heavy, dark textures before the engine can render the beautiful, sunlit landscape.
That puts a whole new spin on suffering. It means the subject's intense anxiety was literally just the sound of the PRU spooling up the heavy data files.
That's the theory.
So fear, worry, anxiety, it's all just UI noise.
It is. It's an error sound. It's an obsolete warning that goes off when the me, running its old survival programming, instinctively clicks on a shortcut to a world that has already been deleted.
Like an old world shortcut.lnk file on your desktop?
Exactly. The actual world file is gone. The I deleted it. But the shortcut is still in the me's muscle memory. So it clicks, gets a file not found error, and interprets that as catastrophic, imminent danger. The terror is real, but the threat is non-existent.
The MAT is reacting perfectly to a danger that only exists as a dead link in its own cache. This means we have to make a vital operational distinction then between positive UI and negative UI.
This is the core of the new operating manual. You have to learn to tell the signal from the noise. Positive UI, that's money actually arriving, a sale being confirmed, staff suddenly taking initiative. These are confirmed logs.
They're frames that the PRU has already rendered from the new future log?
Yes. They are concrete, unshakable evidence. They must be believed.
And the negative UI, the fear.
The negative UI, the fear, the anxiety, the catastrophic what-if scenarios, these are warnings about non-existent branch points. The emotional feeling is very real for the map, but data-wise, in the New World line, it's pointing to nothing. It's the echo of old rules being applied to a new game. It's the sound of the fan, not the signal of a system crash.
So the goal of what the sources call me through transparency isn't to get rid of the UI, it's just to change how you interpret it. You accept the rendered results, the joy, the money as data.
And you invalidate the noise, the fear, as just an artifact, a ghost in the machine. And you have to realize that this deep fear the subject is feeling is, at its root, the fear of losing its job.
Because its me was a genius-level financial planner and risk manager in the old game.
A total pro. But that very skill, the thing that guaranteed survival before, now just creates friction. The me is terrified that if it stops worrying, planning, and suffering, it will simply cease to exist.
Which brings us to the most, I think, jarring concept in all of this. The anxiety is so extreme because the fundamental direction of time itself feels like it's reversing in the operating system. Let's really clearly define the logic of the old PRU versus the new TRU.
It's a total causality reversal. The old PRU, the past log engine, is linear. You take your past log, your history, you project it forward, and you try to build a future.
So I made $10,000 this month. If I work twice as hard, maybe I can make $20,000 next month. Linear projection based on effort.
Exactly. The new PRU, the future log decoding engine, completely flips that. It takes the future log, the actualized data from the future, it decodes that into the present, and then it generates the necessary past to make the present moment logical.
Okay, that's a staggering idea, that the past becomes flexible. The PLU can literally edit my history to justify my present reality.
It has to. It explains things like massive synchronicities, or what some people call the Mandela effect. If the future log requires you to be financially stable by Friday, but your current past log shows way too much debt, the PRU will inject a historical adjustment to make it work. The past becomes a flexible narrative, not a concrete prison.
Let's trace this through the subject's own story. The sources identify a huge moment, the 1010 incident. What was the functional meaning of that insufficient balance error at the bank?
That was the final error display of the old PRU. It was the system physically screaming at the me's. This funding model has hit its absolute limit. The E1200 world line is done. It was the mandatory shutdown command.
And right after that, this inheritance money comes through. The Mies saw that as a rescue, a traditional safety net.
But from the PRU's perspective, it was just planned system maintenance. That money was not a rescue. The sources call it bridge funding from a higher potential world line. Its only job was to let the old PRU shut down cleanly.
So it was just there to liquidate all the old logs, to pay off the old debts so they wouldn't get dragged into the new system?
It was a calculated expenditure to force the OS transition. A clean break.
Okay, that helps me understand something that was confusing. Why, even after that money cleared the major debts, the New Year's fear was so much harder? If they were technically solvent, why was the panic worse in January?
Because the 1010 fear still had a cognitive buffer. The MENA knew the assets existed, which gave it a sense of old world safety, even if the system was failing.
Ah.
But the fear around New Year's? That was the moment the new PRU booted up for the first time without that safety net.
Oh.
The Me looked at the new, empty UI, and its old financial planning algorithms were just useless. It couldn't calculate its way to safety anymore.
That's the ultimate terror for a highly effective manager, when your greatest tool becomes worthless.
It forced the adoption of what the sources call the popcorn viewer stance, total surrender of control. And that triggered the ultimate fear. The loss of control itself, which to the me feels like the loss of existence.
Yeah.
It wasn't about losing the house, it was about its entire identity as the doer being invalidated.
And that genius-level capacity for planning, which was a celebrated asset in the old world,
Became the biggest source of noise in the new one. It's this highly optimized program that's now obsolete, just constantly running disaster simulations in the background because that's what it was built to do. It keeps clicking the deleted shortcut because the act of planning validates its own existence.
Okay, so if we are really moving from, say, Newtonian physics effort force calculation to more of a fluid dynamics model with flow and pressure, how do we actually live in this new OS? What's the user manual?
The core ZOS operational rule is incredibly simple, but incredibly hard to follow. Future calculation is the job of I. The me only pushes the UI button that is illuminated in the current frame. That's it. Minimal input.
And the trap is when the me gets scared and tries to take over the calculations, right?
That's the trap.
So if I'm terrified about a bill due next week and I start making panic sales calls or sending aggressive emails, what am I actually doing to the system?
You're generating unnecessary action. You're creating friction. And you're risking a temporary reconnection to the old PRU's logs. You're forcing a partial reload of that sticky, struggle-based world. The me's job is absolute trust. If the bill is due next week, you look at the bank account next week. The PRU is deploying the solution right now, and panic just interferes with the download.
Just press the button that's lit up on the dashboard today, nothing else.
Nothing else.
This all sounds like it hinges on what the sources call the I position or the phase point. And they're clear, this isn't the ego or some spiritual higher self. What is it?
It's defined as a phase point of observation within the 0-point field. It's a non-personal coordinate that determines your reality bandwidth. And this position isn't determined by your beliefs or intentions. It's determined by the cumulative phase of the frames your me has actually lived and chosen.
The sum total of your actual realized experiences, it's a coordinate of integrity.
It's a coordinate of integrity. Your actualized choices in the old, difficult world are what determine the high-quality bandwidth of the new world. And that coordinate is what dictates the fluid dynamics of reality.
So how does the PRU use that coordinate to render what's next?
The future log is basically a function. You input the I phase, and the output is the most flowing next frame. The PRU is incredibly efficient. It's not choosing the happiest future, necessarily. It's choosing the least obstructed, fastest flowing path from your current coordinate.
And that's where the me's fear comes in again, right? The fear that the easiest path is total destruction, losing the company, the house, everything.
But the sources say that's highly unlikely because destruction is inefficient. It's high resistance. It takes a massive amount of energy to tear down a company, fire everyone, and start from scratch. The PRU will almost always choose the path of resolving distortion with minimum energy.
So it's much easier to just change the business model of the existing company than to blow the whole thing up.
Infinitely easier.
Yeah.
The flow actually guarantees the preservation of essential structures because that's the path of least resistance.
Okay, we have to talk about the main enemy of this new OS then, the mechanism of prediction. If I budget for next month based on this month's revenue, isn't that just good sense?
It comes down to intent and fear. Good planning is working with the resources in the current frame. I have X, so I will allocate X. Prediction in this model is a past log reference driven by fear. It's the me telling the PRU, hey, use the old ZIP file to keep drawing reality because I do not trust this new data stream.
And the new data stream isn't linear, it's quantum.
Exactly. The future log requires quantum jumps. It might go from frame 101 straight to frame 214 with no logical steps in between. And the me's expectation is a demand for a linear story. Show me the gap. Explain frames 102 to 213. But the PRU doesn't have the time or energy for that. It just deploys the next required frame.
And that's why that old spiritual saying, there is only now, is actually a technical specification for the PRU.
It's a technical spec. Only the current frame accepts user input. The past and future are just rendering targets.
Okay, so we've established it's nonlinear, it's flow-driven, but the me is human. It's going to slip up, it's going to get scared and click the old buttons.
Oh.
Which brings us to the ultimate safety net, the AB frame jump and automatic correction.
Right, so think of the A line as the desired, guaranteed future log, the good stuff, A101 to A3000. When the me falls into fear, clicks that deleted shortcut, the PRU momentarily switches to a B server. It renders a virtual frame. Let's call it B50, the panic UI.
And this is that incredible line from the sources. The UI was real, but the world line was fake. I mean, you really have to let that sink in.
It's everything. It means that panic attack, the B50 frame, was drawn perfectly. The me felt the terror, the stomach dropped, the catastrophic thoughts felt completely real. But the B world line had no continuation. It was a dead end. An ad for a canceled show. The ZOS immediately reroutes back to the A line.
The fear was real, but the danger was virtual, a simulation.
A simulation triggered by the me's old habits. And this is the nature of automatic correction, or auto-respawn, as the sources call it.
So it doesn't just go back to where it was, it does something else.
It recalculates the shortest route to A3000, including the B50 error log. The mistake isn't erased. It's rewritten as a necessary catalyst that created the energy for the next quantum leap.
And how does that show up in the real world, in Melcher?
It shows up as sudden, undeniable reality shifts. Hard reloads of history. A stock suddenly jumps. A debt vanishes from the record. Intense, unmissable synchronicities. Or a fundamental premise change. That deadline you were panicking about suddenly wasn't a hard deadline after all.
So the new rules are mistake equals root recalculation. Failure equals a warp gate.
Falling down is no longer a setback. It's the trigger for a warp jump closer to your guaranteed future.
Which brings us to that beautiful fractal example. The subject's own company starts offering a service guarantee to its clients.
That's the aha moment. That's the me integrating the philosophy. They create a system that guarantees results for their customers, regardless of the customer's mistakes. And in doing so, the me has a sudden realization.
If I can guarantee this for others, the OS must be guaranteeing it for me.
And that realization solidifies the trust. It accelerates the adoption of the popcorn viewer stance, because the security of the cosmos is now mirrored in their own small creation.
So if we look back at the subject's timeline, the 2019 ceiling, the COVID reset in 2020, just scraping by in 2023, that whole chaotic mess wasn't random.
Not at all. It was the shortest path control algorithm designed to force the shift. The struggle was the necessary friction to burn off the old dependencies and generate the correct I-phase coordinate. It was the system protecting the subject from a future of success that would have felt hollow and soul dead.
The A1200 log.
Exactly. It forced the jump to the A3000 log. Reality architect.
So even though the zombie ads, the Fear UI will keep popping up from the cache for a while. The fundamental security is locked in.
They've become an account that cannot replay the sequel to the nightmare. The ZOS is the primary bootloader now, not the Mii's fear algorithm. The main movie is guaranteed to play. The Mii just needs to watch the frames unfold and keep pressing the currently illuminated button.
Wow. That was a truly profound deep dive. We've gone from Newtonian effort and calculation all the way to fluid dynamics and decoding.
And I think the key takeaway for you, for the listener going through their own version of this, is that operational manual. Don't touch the controller when the fan is running. Your fear is just the sound of a massive, optimized future being deployed. Believe the positive results you see, those are real, and treat the fear as a temporary pop-up ad for a world that's already been deleted.
And as a final provocative thought to leave you with, based on all this, if the subject's intense financial trauma was really just a necessary password to log into this new system, what major recurring emotional pain in your own life, self-doubt, guilt, relationship stress, what if that is actually the last remaining friction point preventing your own PRU from completing its upgrade? What pain are you holding on to that the system is just waiting to rewrite as the necessary log for your final, guaranteed destination? Something to think about as you move into the flow.